On February 12, 2026, President Donald Trump stood beside EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin and made a major announcement. He repealed the 2009 Greenhouse Gas Endangerment Finding. He called it a scam, a giant scam, a rip-off of the country, a disastrous Obama-era policy, part of the Green New Scam. And he said it had no basis in fact, none whatsoever, and no basis in law. The administration described the repeal as the single largest deregulatory action in U.S. history. That 2009 finding was the legal backbone used to regulate carbon dioxide as a public health threat. It became the foundation for federal climate regulation. It became the justification for carbon capture policy. It became the justification for CO2 injection projects. For years, Louisiana elected officials have been quick to publicly align with President Trump on major issues, but on this, silence, no public endorsement, no clear statement, no explanation, just crickets. If the federal foundation for regulating CO2 as a public danger has been revoked, why is Louisiana aggressively pursuing a massive carbon capture and storage build-out based on permanently injecting CO2 underground? Why are we building an economic strategy around 45Q federal tax credits, around Class 6 primacy, around forced unitization under Act 61, around eminent domain for CO2 pipelines? How can we justify taking private property, restructuring rural economies, locking Louisiana into decades of CO2 injection infrastructure, if the very federal determination labeling CO2 a danger had no basis in fact, and no basis in law? And here's another hard question. Just how much money has the state of Louisiana already invested in this? How many legislative hours have been spent drafting bills and building this framework? How much time has Louisiana Economic Development poured into promoting it? How much involvement has LSU committed to advancing it? How much total capital, public and private, has been steered into building an economy around permanent CO2 injection? How many real Louisiana priorities were pushed aside while this was fast-tracked? How much time has been spent devising this lucrative plan around something President Trump now calls a scam? Governor Jeff Landry has centered his entire Louisiana economic strategy on industry projects that are fully dependent on 45Q federal tax credits. Those credits only pay if companies inject CO2 underground. No injection, no credit, no project. At the same time, now, President Trump has recently proposed a repeal of the 2009 determination that classifies CO2 as a legally dangerous pollutant. If that federal foundation shifts, if 45Q weakens or disappears, what happens to the governor's entire industrial build-out if the taxpayer subsidies that make it profitable disappear? What kind of businessman builds a long-term model that can collapse with one policy change, shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand, and great was the fall of it. The question is simple. Is the permanent injection of CO2 near our families and our water aquifers worth industry's monetary gain? It solely depends on what you prioritize, global climate goals or local environmental safety. This isn't a minor policy difference. This is the foundation. If our governor and legislative leadership agree with the president's position, state it publicly. If they do not, explain why. Louisiana citizens deserve clarity before more land is taken, more infrastructure is approved, and more policy is built around permanent CO2 injection. President Trump puts America first. Governor Landry, not industry first, not corporate subsidies first, not economic development first, but America first. Governor Jeff Landry, speak up. Will you stand with President Trump on his repeal of the 2009 endangerment finding, which means CO2 and other greenhouse gases are no longer classified as pollutants under federal law? Or will you continue pushing your so-called economic development, climate-driven, taxpayer-subsidized plan that puts industry first and Louisiana families second, risking the safety of Louisiana future's generations, their drinking water, and their private property, by allowing the taking of their land through eminent domain and expropriation? Governor, remember this. You cannot serve both God and mammon.
Louisiana friends and neighbors, we must protect our land, our water, and our families. When government won't protect us, we will protect ourselves. Join us, stop this boondoggle, stand with Save My Louisiana. Get involved, protect what's ours. Call your governor, Call your legislators. Demand answers today. Government won't fix this unless we force the issue. Together, let's preserve Louisiana for future generations.